It's hard to describe how needed this win was for the morale of this Dodgers team. It has been over the past like 2 weeks, a couple weeks or so. Ever since Max Muncy has been out, it has been a struggle for the Dodgers in a lot of different aspects of the game. Offensively, we've seen the offense go through a lot of bouts of struggle. The pitching has gone through struggles, especially with everything that we're seeing with the bullpen, and the game started to disappear a little bit as you're seeing some things repeat itself out of the bullpen. But the Dodgers were able to find a way to win the game today, which is incredibly important for just the morale of this team going forward. That is something that you love to see. Obviously, right now the team is not firing on all the cylinders, but anytime that you're able to go out and win a series is a good thing.
It is. So, okay, I'm going to say this. It's great. It's positive you win. The Twins are not a good team. They're 4 or 5 games under 500. They're 4.5 games back out of the wild card. They have 4 teams in front of them to get to the wild card. And so it's not like an unbelievably terrible team. I mean, they have some pieces. We see Byron Buxton's a good player. They have 2 of the Jacks and Duran, 2 of the best relievers in the game. The Dodgers are really struggling to throw strikes with their bullpen. What does it take to go get Jackson Duran?
As far as either one of those two, okay. So you're going right off the gate with it.
Yes.
So
yeah, I'm tired of watching the bullpen. Sorry, I know we won today. I'm happy about that. I'm tired of watching the bullpen.
Yes, that is totally fair. So let's get into a little bit of this conversation because I think it is essential to be able to know the types of players that they are. One, they're phenomenal relievers. They're both a little bit different into what they excel at. Obviously, Griffin Jackson did not have a great outing today, but if you look at the overall picture of what they are at, both of them are absolutely phenomenal pitchers. Where Yandon Duran accelerates at and really is dominant at, it's that electric fastball that he's able to get. And he combines that not just with the ability to be able to go out and get strikeouts, which he does at a 32% clip, but he also gets an insane amount of ground balls. This is Yandon Duran. It's a 68% ground ball percentage, which when you combine that with his ability to go out there and get strikeouts and only walk hitters at his strikeout percentage, Yandon Duran, just to clarify, is about 26%. It's a little bit lower than what I said. 32% was his whiff percentage. It's a walk percentage right around league average-ish for Yandon Duran. You combine that with his ability to get ground balls, very good. Griffin Jax is more of the strikeout minus walk percentage type of pitcher, which if you're looking for a guy that strikes out a ton of hitters and doesn't walk hardly anybody, you're looking at Griffin Jax. With him entering the game today, which I know this is probably going to go down because of the game today, it was a 20% swinging strike percentage, which is up at the top of the league. Both of them, and this is incredibly important, have 3 years of club control, meaning that for the Griffin Jax and Yandon Duran, they will not be free agents until after the 2027 season, which increases the price tag that both of them have. For Yandon Duran, Griffin Jax, you're talking about very expensive relief pitcher targets, which if you look at the mindset of the Dodgers, this typically hasn't been the approach that the Dodgers have taken, is go out and spend big on relievers. We saw a little bit of a different change of philosophy during this offseason when the Dodgers spent years and big years on a guy like a Tanner Scott. You can have a lot of debates as far as how that's turned out. So far, it hasn't turned out necessarily great as far as the dominance that Tanner Scott was supposed to be able to bring. So then it becomes a question of Griffin Jax, Yandon Duran. Those are 2 options that the Dodgers could go out and get. The issue with that is you would be not only paying for this season, but you'd be paying for 2 additional seasons, which with the Minnesota Twins, they're going to do everything they can to try to pry out as much as they possibly can for them. So you look at value-wise for Duran, look at value-wise for Jax, because they have 2 years after this year club control, their value of what they have increases. You combine that with the fact that other teams know the Dodgers need bullpen help and know that at the trade deadline, there's a whole bunch of different teams that are going to go out and compete, which means that some of the upper guys in the system, if you wanted to go out and get a Duran, if you wanted to go out and get a Jax, it's not without the realm of possibility that the upper guy or the guys that are considered the upper guys of the system might be in play if they wanted to go out and get a Duran and Jax. So then it becomes a question of, is that the best use of the resources? Or, and this actually is a really fascinating conversation that we can get into, what exactly is the need for this bullpen? Is more of the concern to get one good quality guy, or maybe two guys that are quantity guys? Not that
quality,
they are
quality. We had no quantity, quality. It has to be quality.
Okay, so here's where I'm a little bit concerned with this bullpen, is we're starting to see accumulation of injuries that are starting to pile up for guys. And when I'm talking about quantity, I'm not talking about bad pitchers that you're bringing in or mediocre relief pitchers that you're bringing in. I'm talking about, instead of going at the very top and spending all of your resources to get one of a Duran, one of a Jax, one of an Emmanuel Clase, one of a Mason Miller, we're starting to see a lot of guys start to go down with injuries to this bullpen. Tanner Scott obviously is down with an injury right now. We're hoping that he's going to be able to be back. It sounds like he's going to start throwing hopefully within a couple of days. We will see how long he's actually going to be on the injured list. It's very much a question mark as far as whether we're going to have a Michael Kopech later in the season. That is not a guarantee. It is also not a guarantee that Bruce Gratterall is going to be able to come back. Ben Kasperius just went out of the game yesterday with some type of injury. It sounds like he's going to avoid the injured list, but that remains a little bit of a question mark. You have other pitchers that are on there, like a Jack Dreyer, who's already almost to the limit of what he had for innings last year. He's at like 85% of the innings that he had pitched last year, with like 65% of the games being played right now. You have a lot of different injuries, of which there remains some question marks. There's a hope that Blake Trinan is going to be able to come back. So the question remains, is it going to be something, is it going to be fruitful, or is it something to where the Dodgers need not just one bullpen arm, but they need two bullpen arms? And I think it is a rarity, if you know the history of the Dodgers, that they're going to go out and trade for two of, or like, for example, go and trade for both Griffin Jax and Yandon Duran. I see that as very unlikely, because that is out of character with how the Dodgers have approached things in the past. So the question is, do you just go out and get one reliever, hope that the other guys remain healthy, or during a postseason when you know you need a lot of different good arms to be good and healthy and ready to go, do you need to go out there and get multiple different relievers?
Yeah, they definitely, I think, I was not on the bandwagon that you had to go get a reliever until Tanner Scott got hurt, and then until Kirby Yates goes out there and, I mean, he gives up 3 steals, 3 walks. Somehow the Dodgers only give up a couple of runs there. But it's just, it's too ugly right now. And the amount of money you spend, as close as you are still, I know it doesn't look like it. Yesterday's game was pitiful. I called it as bowling shoe ugly, whatever it may be. The Twins aren't good. You're having to have walk-off hits to beat the Twins at home. Freddie's not hitting. Mookie's not hitting. Mookie is reportedly not going to play in the first game of the Boston series for personal reasons. But I'll say this, it's never as bad as it seems, and it's never as good as it seems. So as terrible as it seems right now, the Dodgers still are very close, closer than you think, to being the best team in baseball, to being favored to win the World Series, especially if you go make a couple of moves. So if it was a situation to where you just don't, you feel like you're so far away that, hey, let's just ride it and see if we can get hot, okay, fine. But the Dodgers are literally a closer or two, maybe a bat or two, away from being a dominant team, and then guys just starting to hit the ball decent or okay. So yeah, I think this is a situation to where you go all in for a Yandon Duran, you go all in for a Jax, you go all in for a Mason Miller. I don't know what it would take to get Emmanuel Clase, so let's back up. Austin, in your opinion, what would it take to get, let's go through these one by one. Okay. What would it take to get Yandon Duran?
It's very difficult to be able to say, but if you're talking about any one of these guys, which if we're talking about the list of Griffin Jax, Yandon Duran, Emmanuel Clase.
Oh, I think Austin just froze right there. We may have to deal with Austin.
If you're talking about going out and getting them, if you're going to go out and get any one of the 5 pitchers that I mentioned, Jax, Duran, Clase, Bautista, or Mason Miller, it very likely is going to cost you a Josue de Paula or a Dalton Rushing of that type of caliber.
Will the Dodgers make Josue de Paula or Zire Hope available? Should they?
Should
they or should they?
For the right, and this becomes a little bit of an issue because this goes to some fundamental things of which I believe in. I am, and this is kind of following along with a little bit of the logic with what the Dodgers had. I'm incredibly hesitant to be able to give out huge packages for relievers.
So what makes Josue Paula or Zire Hope so untouchable?
So when you're talking about guys in this system,
oh my gosh, we can't give these guys away for the best closer in the game. What makes them that untouchable?
I'm hesitant because of the variability, because of the volatility of relief pitchers.
Okay.
Relief pitchers move around quite a bit, and they are very unpredictable as far as what exactly is going to happen, which means
so are
moving
prospects,
all
right?
of your ships. Well, so are prospects, absolutely.
Yeah, right,
And this is not to say that they should be completely unwilling to be able to trade Josue Paula or Zire Hope. But they should be doing those 4 guys that are going to be really solid contributors that are an absolute known bet for them. And you can make the argument that some of these relief pitchers are as close to a sure bet, but we saw the exact same thing with Tanner Scott.
Sure.
Tanner Scott was as close to a sure bet of a signing in the offseason, and has not to this point turned out well. Hopefully he's able to come back and be the dominant closer that he actually can be. The issue that I have with this, if we're talking about the upper guys in the system, is I don't think it is just a go out and get a Yandon Duran, Griffin Jax, Clase, Mason Miller, or any one of these really elite guys with multiple years of control. I don't think that is the only option for the Los Angeles Dodgers, and there could be other alternatives that you could go to in which they could spread out and make this more well-rounded, complete team to where you're not giving up a ton of guys in order to get that.
Understood.
Because in order to be able to go out and get a Duran, get a Griffin Jax, to get an Emmanuel Clase, to get a Mason Miller, to get a Felix Bautista, it is going to cost a ton, of which you wouldn't be able to, whether it's in this offseason or future offseasons, be able to use those to be able to make your team a little bit more well-rounded and perhaps get somebody that has a little bit more impact to your club than a relief pitcher that you could get.
Right. Understood. So my question, though, to break it down is what makes specifically DePaula, you've seen him quite a bit in person, DePaula and Hope so untouchable to where they are more valuable than the best closer in the game?
Yeah.
How is either one of them more valuable than that guy?
It's a really good question. It's a difficult one to be able to do because you're talking about projectability of what these guys are going to be able to do in the future. With Zire Hope, he is at least defensively a better player than a Josue Paula at this point right now, and has power potential that is really, really solid. He has put up incredible numbers this year. Same with Josue Paula, whose bat-to-ball skills are really, really solid.
Would you say incredible numbers or good numbers?
They are really good numbers.
I mean, he's top 10-ish in most categories in the Midwest League, right?
You're talking about 130 to 135 to 140 WRC plus.
If you believe in that type of deal, but if you look through the and this is we're going to go a lot back and forth on this, and that's not to say I'm not agreeing with Austin. This is just how we run through conversations. Okay. So if you look at Zire Hope, as much potential as he has, he's a good athlete, lots of power potential. He swings straight up the ball. He has a lot of swing and miss. Okay, so if you believe advanced analytics, which sometimes I do, sometimes I don't, Michael Conforto is carrying a 125 WRC plus through like the end of May. And it's like, that's not a 25% above league average hitter. He just was walking a lot. And he was walking a lot for different reasons. So if you look at Zire Hope, he's like 8th in this and 7th in that and 9th in this. He's not really first or second in anything in the Midwest League. Am I wrong there?
I'd have to look at the updated numbers and stuff for Zire Hope. He has been really solid across the board. He's got a lot of skill
I'm not disagreeing with really solid, but if you're telling me he's more valuable than an Emmanuel Clase, if you're telling me he's more valuable than a Yandon Duran or a Griffin Jax or a Mason Miller, he's got to be a hell of a lot more than a solid high A player. For that to be off the table. The
question is not necessarily is he better right now, because it's going to be a while before you see a Zire Hope or Josue Paula. It's about that projectability of what he potentially could be, and there is going to be potentially at some need for an outfielder for the Los Angeles Dodgers in the future. They obviously have an Andy Pages out there right now. Teoscar Hernandez is signed through 2027 with a club option for 2028, but that is no guarantee. And right now, Teoscar Hernandez is around a league average bat. Got a couple of hits today, so will be a little bit better than league average, but hasn't necessarily been great. There is potentially future holes, which I know you can't necessarily say we can't hoard all of these different guys for the future.
Yeah.
But with that, you also have to, when you have these incredible pieces, and especially, and this is perhaps what is holding me back with Josue Paula and Zire Hope. One of the things that the Dodgers have to target with their prospects is they can't have a bunch of guys that are going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft and then lose all of those guys. Josue Paula and Zire Hope aren't going to be eligible for the Rule 5 draft this upcoming
That's a good point.
season. Which means
the age is the biggest argument, no doubt.
Their age absolutely fits with potentially the timeline of what the Dodgers have. It's the exact same thing with why they have guys like a Mike Sirota or Eduardo Quintero, who are all of those groups are incredibly talented, but they also don't have to be on the 40-man roster for the Dodgers for a little bit, which means that you can keep them around and kind of see what exactly happens. The development of major league or minor league players very much differs, and we've seen guys that are incredible prospects or rated really highly kind of not do as well later on in their career, but we've also seen really high emergence, which means that when you go out and make a trade for one of these guys, it has to be for the right guy, and you have to utilize the chips that you have smartly, and going out and utilizing all of your top guys to get a relief pitcher, which is really solid and really good. Is that going to be Is that going to be significantly better than them going out and perhaps getting a rental? There are some solid rentals this year for relievers. What is the prospect of going out and trying to trade all of your top guys for a relief pitcher, especially if you're talking about a guy like Duran, and there's already a lot of concerns with Dodgers injuries. When you have guys throwing 100 miles per hour, is there a high concern for injury at some point? I'm not saying
that's why Paula's out for the rest of the season, though. I mean, that can be that argument can be made either way.
It can absolutely be made either way, and that is the difficulty of baseball and the organization. So it comes down to, do the Dodgers need to, in this instance, change the fundamental approach that they have taken with relievers, which is that they don't like to really spend big on relievers? Or I don't think it's any question that they need relief pitching help. I don't think I would disagree with Casey in that in either way, but do they need to go out and spend the absolute biggest for that and go out to get the biggest guy no matter what?
Yes.
Why not? I am very hesitant.
Why not?
I'm very hesitant because I don't think that is
why
the
are
best
you hesitant, though? Okay, so let me ask you this.
Yes.
You have Andy Pages. Let's say Teo's gone in a couple of years, okay?
Yes.
So how many outfield spots are you actually going to need to fill at the major league level with prospects in your system right now?
It is possible that there could be two, but also
maximum of two.
You'll see what exactly happens with guys at the major league level. We've seen guys come up and have a couple of good years and then kind of fall back down. But let's just say that it's two, maximum of two. And let's say that you have the group of Zire Hope, Josue Paula, Mike Sirota, you have Eduardo Quintero.
And you don't win a World Series because you refuse to give away one of those four that you only need. You refuse to give away one of the four to go get the best closer in the game, and you didn't win a World Series because you hoarded all four of them when you only needed one.
Well, okay, so this brings up the question, is one of those relief pitchers the necessity that the Dodgers need to be able to win a World Series? Because
I'm of the opinion they are.
if that is the case, if you believe that the Dodgers are only one of these relief pitchers away from winning a World Series, then of course you do that. Of course you do that.
No, I think they're one elite and then one that, you talked about quality and quantity. Mm-hmm. You got to go get the elite closer, and then you can go get a quantity setup bridge guy. That's what the Dodgers need right now. They need a bridge guy that's quantity. They need a closer that is quality. So do what it takes to go get those guys. Why have the minor leagues if you're not going to do that and give yourself the best chance to win a World Series?
Okay, so let's talk about marginally different, because we have the guys that have multiple years of control, but there are also secondary options that are closers. You have a David Bednar who only has a year and a half of club control this year and then next year. That will be cheaper than each and every single one of these options, who by some metrics is arguably just as good, if not better, than each one of these guys. He would be cheaper to be able to go out and get. You also have a guy like a Ryan Helsley that you could go get from St. Louis, which St. Louis is taking a little bit of a step back, or has taken a little bit of a step back, still throws incredibly hard and has insane amount of stuff. There are other options that you could turn to if you wanted.
Who's the best one?
Elite, if you wanted to turn to
who's the best one the Dodgers could throw their chips in and go get, realistically?
Realistically, as far as who they could
the
actually
Dodgers have the chips, they could go get them if they just let their guard down and went and got the best closer available. Who would it be?
If they went out and and didn't really care about anything else, to just go out and get the best one, it would probably be either Duran or Jackson.
Yes. So what's it going to take to get Duran?
It is going to take probably either a Josue de Paula, Zire Hope, or maybe a
not both.
Rushing
not
or something.
both.
I don't believe it would be both. No.
So I mean, what's the problem here? I mean, so you still have 3 elite outfielders at the bottom half of your minor league system. What's the problem here?
It's a really good question as far as what that is.
You really don't want to make a 1-for-1 trade Josue de Paula for Johan Duran? I mean, really?
It's a good question. It comes back to the fundamental things. Am I going to go out and trade for some of these guys for a relief pitcher with that many amount of years on it? I remain very hesitant on that.
So you're trying to win a World Series this year, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what are you hesitant about? Do you think he's going to get injured this year? Does he look like he's going to get injured to you?
I think Johan Duran is better than some of the other guys.
Yes.
But it is very small, the gap of what it is, which means you can go out and get another option that would be cheaper.
But who's better?
I probably Duran.
So who are we fans of? What team?
Los Angeles
what team
Dodgers.
do you root for? The
Los
Dodgers,
Angeles Dodgers,
right?
Yeah.
So who should be going out for the best player available? The Twins or the Royals or whoever the hell it is that's going to be at the trade deadline, or the freaking Los Angeles Dodgers? We're the Los Angeles Dodgers. We have more resources than anybody else on the earth. Why would we not go out for why would we not go for the absolute best that's available right now? If you're saying all we have to do is give up one of the 4 not good, elite young outfield prospects. Not all of them, one of them. 1/4 of them, of which you're only going to need 2 of them. If Andy Paez continues to be Andy Paez, you're only going to need 2 of them max, probably only 1 of them, because between now and then, the Dodgers will go get their next Teoscar Hernandez. That just makes no sense to me. Why the Dodgers would be that conservative in that situation? Somebody's going to have to explain that to me, why you wouldn't trade one of those guys straight up for Johan Duran.
It's a good question. And it is because there are other options, and because it does not just have to be go out and get the guys with a whole bunch of different years. There are other options of which the Dodgers could be able to get, and they're going to have to weigh those options. And the history tells us that the Los Angeles Dodgers usually do not go out and spend big on relievers. The only alternative case that I can really point to is a guy like a Tanner Scott going out in free agency. And I realistically, I think they potentially could turn to some other alternatives.
Yeah,
that is realistically of what they would do. And you're talking about, as far as different options to be able to update this roster at some point. This is not to say that they shouldn't at some point be trading one or multiple of the young outfield prospects that they have. It is they have to be able to do it for the right guy, and choosing a relief pitcher when the margin between the top guy that you have and a different guy, without having to give up some of the top guys, which you could use to perhaps address bigger holes, perhaps in the offseason or in future seasons. I think that is potentially a different alternative case that the Dodgers could go down.
Yeah, and so here's another aspect of it. Are the Twins going to trade Duran?
I don't know. I'm not convinced on that.
Throw me out a 50-50. What do you think?
As far as the percent chances to trade Duran, it's probably about a 25-30% chance.
Okay, so you're thinking it's low. So there's no argument to be made there for you that if you like Tanner Scott deal, part of the reason why the Padres got him was so the Dodgers wouldn't.
Yes.
So part of the argument there for you is not that if the Dodgers don't get him, then you're going to have to be facing him instead of him being on your team. You're not seeing that part of it?
Because with Minnesota, they obviously are under 500 right now, but they still have a decent amount of pieces of which are pretty solid for them, which means that for future years, especially with Duran and Jax having a couple more years of control, they very well could sit back unless somebody gives us some of the top guys or some of the most elite top of guys. If somebody blows us away, we can just sit back and you know what? If we're not competitive or if we want to do it during the offseason or next trade deadline, we can just sit back and wait. Yeah. And they have that luxury that because of the years of control that they have. And typically with the guys that have multiple years of control, there's usually a smaller percent chance than what most people think that they get moved.
So Showtime is very high on Josue de Paula. So what is it about Josue de Paula or Zire Hope that makes you think? I mean, Zire Hope, his best. I'm not saying I'm just playing the devil's advocate. Okay, when you look at statistics in the Midwest League this year, okay, Zire Hope, he is number 19 in home runs with 9. So his power tool is supposed to be one of his best tools, okay, because he strikes out a lot. So there's that. Josue de Paula really doesn't have a defensive position. He's not going to be anywhere close to an elite outfielder. Okay, he's not a guy that's going to hit a ton of home runs. Now, he's hit, I think, 19 or something like this. He's hit quite a few, but he has a lower launch angle, and he's not an elite athlete. He's not that fast. So I guess I'm giving you the weak spots of these guys to ask. I keep hearing like shows saying, hey, you can't give away a guy for potential prospects that are at the high level that might be multiple-year all-stars. Why would anybody assume that either one of these guys are going to be multiple-year all-stars when they're not at the top of the league in the Midwest League right now at much of anything?
So looking at Zire Hope is among qualified hitters for the Midwest League, which this includes, 90 or so qualified hitters. He's 5th in WRC plus among all qualified hitters in the Midwest League.
If you believe in that. But he's not anywhere close to 5th in any one statistical category.
If we're talking about Josue de Paula, if you're talking about WRC plus, he is 10th. Josue de Paula is 3rd in walk percentage. He draws a ton of walks.
Okay.
This Josue de Paula strikeout percentage is only about 20%. He's got really good bat to ball skills, or at least his eye is really solid. And we're talking about Josue de Paula, sneaky enough athlete to be able to steal 20. He's close to 30 stolen bases
at the Midwest League level. Yes,
in the Midwest League. Yes. And so when you're talking about projectability, what could he possibly do? You would hope with Josue de Paula that he'd be able to hit for a little bit more power. Obviously, the Midwest League is a little bit harder of a league to hit for power. But Josue de Paula, his ISO is at .155. That is around a little bit above league average for the Midwest League and what they have. Zire Hope, when we're talking about him, he's put up solid numbers as far as production wise. Exit velocities are really solid, which exit velocities, the reason why that's important is because that shows potential for future growth and future power ability. And we've seen times where Zire Hope has gone out there and hit for a decent amount of power with both of these guys. And when we're talking about minor league guys, you're talking about projectability, which means that you're looking for different signs of each one of these guys to go out there and potentially be a really good solid hitter and really good future productive player. With Zire Hope, I think there's a little bit more confidence that he's going to be able to stick in one of the corner outfield spot, whereas Josue de Paula, as far as his position ability, if you want to use that as a little bit of a question mark of what he's going to be in the future.
Again, I'm just playing the devil's advocate.
Yes, absolutely. And you're talking a lot about projectability and about what each one of these guys are going to be able to do. And putting up their numbers of what they have, I go by WRC plus. I believe in that statistic. And when you're looking at that specific statistic, both of those guys are towards the top of the Midwest League in that specific category. And when you're talking about guys that are young, that don't need to be added to the 40-man roster for quite a long time, there is a lot of value for each one of those guys there.
So let's go through this. Josue de Paula is 5th in on-base percentage. Neither one of them are top 10 in batting average. Strikeouts right here, Zire Hope is 8th in the Midwest League in strikeouts, and he only has 9 home runs. So I'm just trying to poke holes into this as to why anybody thinks these players are so good that you wouldn't do a one-on-one, or maybe throw in another lower tiered prospect for the elite closer. And, hey, take out. So here's the difference between statistics. Like, there's times where you need to go analytical, and then there's times where you need to throw your notebooks away and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to trust my eyes, I'm going to trust my gut. So typically speaking, do you go out and do you go get a reliever because they're volatile, this and that and this and that? Do you trade away one of your better prospects in the system? Probably not this and that, but there is a glaring weakness for the Dodgers right now, and it is an obvious weakness at the back end of your bullpen. So to me, this goes back to our offseason conversations, and I'm having so much fun with this, by the way. Yeah. Again, I'm just playing devil's advocate. There's such a glaring need. I'm not calling this a want, Austin. This is a need. And when you're the Dodgers, what you do is you don't get Manny Margot. You go get Tanner Scott. You go get Shohei Ohtani. You go get Mookie Betts. You go get Freddie Freeman. You go get those guys when you actually have a need. So last year, they wanted to add Michael Kopech, but they felt like they needed Tommy Edman. Michael Kopech was the kind of the want part of that. This is squarely, in my opinion, and if somebody wants to disagree with me or talk me out of this, have at it. Somebody's going to have to explain to me how having a closer, or at least some back-end reliever that has been really great for a long time, how in the world is that not a big-time need?
I'm not disagreeing that getting back end of the bullpen help is not a need. What I've been arguing is that going out and spending for the quantity of years is not necessarily a necessity, because there are potentially other options that you could turn to.
Yeah. I'm not as big on the exit velocity thing, because exit velocity means you swing really hard, and the harder you swing, the more you swing and miss. So the exit velocity thing, to me, has to be paired with strikeout percentage, swing and miss percentage, just to say to me, well, this guy hits the ball hard. Do you know how many guys that I've seen take batting practice at 5 o'clock in the afternoon that are hitting bombs over the scoreboard, and you get them at 7 o'clock, it's called a 5 o'clock hitter, and you get them at 7 o'clock, and hell, they can't hit anything. It's the Joe Boo effect. So if the argument to me is that, I'm just pushing back on this show. If the argument is, well, they hit the ball hard, well, damn, the Dodgers have probably 3 or 4 guys in the system that hit the ball hard just like they do, but they're not good hitters right now. I'm not going to name names. So the exit velocity thing by itself, okay, that's not an argument. It also has to go, because really, to be honest with you, exit velocities don't always paint an accurate picture in terms of whether you're actually going to get on base or not. You actually have to mix exit velocity and launch angle together to determine your percentages, your best percentages. Now, the harder you hit the ball, the more you're going to get on base. But I'll say this, also, the more you hit the ball, the more you get on base. So just because you have high exit velocity, if you hit the ball fewer amount of times versus somebody else who maybe doesn't quite have that exit velocity but has better bat-to-ball skills, then at that point, and then if your launch angles aren't as high as you'd like them to be and all that, then you've got to combine all that together to get the proper picture.
Yeah, it's a balance, because you can have somebody who makes contact every single time, but it's a weak ground ball in the infield, in which case they're going to get out a vast majority of the time. That's not good things, and that's not, I would say, quality contact. You have to combine the quantity of contact with the quality of contact, which means that you have to hit the ball a little bit hard, but you also have to hit the ball quite a bit, and you have to be able to do a little bit of both.
What is Zire Hope's strikeout percentage?
It's about 26% right now.
Yeah, how does that usually work? As if guys are above 25% strikeout rate, how does that usually work as they move up?
It usually goes up a little bit.
Yes.
As far as
it turns into a lot bigger hole, is all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm. And perhaps it potentially could turn into a lot bigger hole for Zire Hope. There's a lot of tools around with which he could potentially work with to be able to go and limit that. And we'll see what happens with Zire Hope. He's no guarantee to be able to go out there and be a quality outfielder for the Los Angeles Dodgers or any organization. With the tools and skill sets that he has a really good percent chance to be able to reach a higher higher ceiling, perhaps, is how you perhaps could view it. And it's not like Zire Hope is striking out 30, 31, 32% of the time.
Well, he's at the high level,
Then I would be really concerned about that.
Well, but he's at the high A level. I mean, there is very little you can take away. If you're at 26% strikeout rate at the high A level, that's very alarming. I'm just going to say that point blank, because the double A level, you're going to have pitchers that are going to be able to hit. Obviously, if you have a 26% strikeout rate at the high A level, you have a hole in your swing somewhere. Either you're swinging too hard or you're swinging up at it, or there's a specific cold zone that high A pitchers are able to hit. So if you get to double A, first of all, you're going to get a bigger book, okay? People are going to know more about you. Then you're also going to have way more talented pitchers that can pitch to those cold zones more. So I'm not saying it will happen, but like a Damon Keith, like a Chris Newell, okay? Damon Keith was absolutely fantastic whenever he is at high A, okay? Yeah. He has struggled mightily at that double A level because he's had holes in his swings. He's a guy that can hit the ball harder than anybody you could possibly know. He's maybe the best athlete pound for pound of anybody in the system. Chris Newell might have the most amount of talent, and he can absolutely clobber the ball. But the problem is, as they moved up, okay, that strikeout percentage caught up with them because pitchers were more talented and could hit those holes.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with any of that. So it becomes a question of, are the holes within Zire Hope's swing as big as they were for a guy like a Damon Keith and a Chris Newell, where you anticipate that to be so much of a problem as they move up? And the organization has their own thoughts about that. They have a lot more data than what I have currently at right now. And so I trust them to be able to go through that process and work with what they have to be able to help make the team and make Zire as good as he possibly can.
Sure, 100%. And Austin and I haven't been on in a while, and I'm just throwing him absolute darts and fastballs right and left, and his head swimming. So this is a whole lot of fun, because I have not had a chance to get into this type of awesome conversation like this in a while. So I'm having a hell of a lot of fun. So let me ask you this then, okay? You said quality, quantity. We both agree the Dodgers need a closer, back-end guy, probably multiple guys. So first of all, are you on the 1 or 2 bandwagon here? The Dodgers
as far as number of relievers, I'm on the 2. I think they need 2 relievers.
So Austin Brubaker is Andrew Friedman. Who are the guys that you go get and why?
Okay, so actually this brings up a little bit of a question. Do you actually have access to that document that I sent you?
I can get it. I can get it right now.
Because the reason why I am so insistent a little bit about this is because I've done my homework. And because I know that there is a lot of different options that are potentially available and potentially out there for the Dodgers to be able to get. And so this is actually a document that I've showed Casey on my Monday show before. This is one that I think
Did you email it?
I believe so. It's one of these shared docs that I have. Let me see if I can go ahead and share that with you really quick one more time.
Yeah. By the way, Damon Keith strikeout. His K percentage at the high level is 26%.
Okay.
Just to get that out there.
Yeah. So when we're talking about different relief pitchers, if we're talking about me putting in the different shoes, one of the things that I'm looking at is I'm looking for different. I should have just sent it to you, Casey. I'm looking for a lot of different guys, and especially with the Dodgers bullpen right now, they are looking for right-handed relievers primarily right now. And so there's a couple of different names that have gone out there and had a lot of success that are cheaper than what if you were to go out there and spend big on a Duran or a Jax and stuff. And how I have it broken down within the document, which Casey will pull up at some point.
Can you send it one more time? I think I just messed up.
Yeah,
you have the ability to do that. This is going to be a little bit clunky, but I want to get this up on the board. And I got a new mouse. It's one of those trackball deals, and I'm just learning it. So I made a mistake. There we go. Okay, thank you.
There we go.
So let me.
So the first part is for starting pitchers, which I'm a little less concerned about starting pitcher, just because the need for bullpen help, I think, supersedes the starting pitching. And obviously, there's a lot of concern with the Dodgers starting pitching because of the past history that they've had with starters and them getting hurt at some point. That happened last year. Tyler Glasnow got injured after the trade deadline, and that made very much the pitching situation going into that concerning. But I think relief pitcher is much more of perhaps a necessity for the Dodgers. So if you're talking about realistic guys, if you're talking about guys that have 1 to 2 years of club control, we're talking about right-handed pitchers that would be available, that would be significantly cheaper than some of the options that were mentioned. Some of the guys that I'm looking at, we already mentioned David Bednar. He's got 2 years of control from Pittsburgh. If you're talking about his ERA, 2.31, has a 34% strikeout percentage for him. He's got really good stuff. The quality of contact is really, really soft for him. A 279 expected weighted on base average. If you're talking about other pitchers, obviously the other closer type of situation is a Ryan Helsley, which if we're talking about the St. Louis Cardinals, I'd have to double check. Yeah, they just lost 2 straight to the Colorado Rockies, and they are back to being 52-51. This was a team that I was really looking out for, similar to a Minnesota, because they have a lot of different options potentially to go to in the back end of the bullpen. So Ryan Helsley very well could be an option for the Dodgers. With him, he struggled a little bit on the season, but even so, 3.18 ERA, not quite as dominant as it has been in the past, but still a 15.5 swinging strike percentage, velo at 99, stuff plus at 129. His stuff still remains incredibly solid. He just has 1 year of control left, which means he would be a pure rental if the Cardinals decided to sell, which we're talking about the wild card picture, which let me check this really quick. St. Louis, if we're talking about the wild card, is 3.5 games back, but they're also behind Cincinnati. They're also behind the Giants for that third wild card. So it's a question of, does St. Louis actually want to go in, or do they want to consider what is called a soft sell, and meaning that some of the rentals they might move off of, or perhaps relief pitchers. Another guy that I'm actually a little bit fascinated about potentially being another option, which would be a cheap option if you wanted a relief pitcher. This is not a closer per se, but if you're talking about a guy that has had a lot of success, what about a guy like a Phil Maton from St. Louis? 2.48 ERA. If you're talking about ERA wise, that is lower than what Griffin Jax has. That is lower what Manuel Clase. That is lower what Felix Bautista. That is
smells
lower
like
than
Dodgers.
Mason Miller. And if you're talking about his whiff percentage, 35% with a 31% K percentage for a Phil Maton. And the quality of contact, actually the expected quality of contact is even better than what the actual contact was, meaning that he is expected to have softer contact than what he's given up on the season with the WOBA and expected WOBA. Another one, if you wanted to swing for more of a similar profile to a Michael Kopech, could be a Sir Anthony Dominguez from Baltimore. He, as far as ERA-wise, a little bit higher, 3.63. There is concern because he has a very high walk percentage, but the strikeout percentage is at 31%, 34% whiff percentage. If you're talking about a system guy that the Dodgers seemingly like to work with guys that get a lot of swing and miss, Sir Anthony Dominguez actually fits with the profile. And if you're talking about postseason success, Sir Anthony Dominguez has had some success in the postseason. Postseason ERA of about 1 to maybe 2 on the season. He's been in the postseason the past couple of seasons. If you're talking about some other guys, one of the guys that has been mentioned is a guy like a Pete Fairbanks. He is with Tampa Bay right now. He has a club option that his price goes up next season, which typically is when Tampa Bay decides to trade guys like that. Entering today at a 2.84 ERA on the season. The strikeouts and walk numbers aren't necessarily as great, but he throws hard, 97, 111 stuff plus, and the quality of contact, the weighted on base average, which think of that as on base percentage, is 251 on the season. Other potential options that there could be, if you wanted to swing for a buy low, but potentially could be solid at some point, there is still potentially reason to believe in a guy perhaps like a Raisel Iglesias, who's got 1 year control left for for Atlanta. His ERA is above 5. However, his Sierra, which is a better predictor of future ERA, is 2.96. and he's got a 31% whiff percentage, strikeout percentage of 27%, walk percentage of only 6%. Generates a lot of swing and miss. The issue with him is when he's been hit pretty hard. Just some other names to kind of keep in mind. I don't think Cincinnati is selling, but I could potentially look for Emilio Pagan, who's got 1 year of control, right-handed reliever. If you're talking about potentially some other guys, like Chris Martin, I don't really think Texas is selling, but he could potentially be an option. He's got entering today, has a 2.36 ERA on the season. There's a couple of other guys. I'm not high on a guy like a Kyle Finnegan, whose ERA is up to 4.62, but he's going to be somebody that a lot of people are going to be mentioning. And if you're talking about another reliever from Texas, Sean Armstrong, I don't think they would go back and get a Dennis Santana again, but he's having a ton of success, 1.49 ERA. If you're talking about left-handed relievers, they're a little bit less available. But if you're talking about one, he actually had a little bit of struggle during the game today. He was a pitcher I believe it was the 7th inning when the Dodgers started to get a rally. But there's a pitcher from Minnesota, the left-handed pitcher, only 1 year of control left, who's got an ERA still after today of under sub-1. Danny Coulombe has a sub-1 ERA on the season. A lot of the underlying numbers, again, entering today, are really solid. The quality of contact remains really low for him. I don't think Boston's going to be trading Aroldis Chapman. There could be a Gregory Soto. I'm a little less high on him, but if you need somebody that can get some swing and miss from the left-handed side, he could potentially be in options. So the reason why I'm going through a lot of these guys is there is potentially a lot of guys that you could potentially go to that could be really solid and have put up to this season relatively comparable numbers to some of the elite arms that you could go ahead and get. And when I'm talking about quality, which means go all in for one of the elite guys, or quantity, meaning go out and get, because I think they need two guys, go out and get two really, really solid options that could fit right in, and you still are projected to have a Blake Trinan at the back end of the bullpen. You are still hopefully going to have a guy like a Tanner Scott who can turn it around at the back end of the bullpen. You'll have an Alex Vesey. You'll have some high leverage arms to add some of these other guys to the mix. I think could potentially be really solid options for the Los Angeles Dodgers to be able to do that. And because if we're talking about this, I also think that there is probably a need for the Dodgers to go out and get a bat, whether that's a bat first player or a defensive first type of player as well. And you can combine two relievers and a bat at this deadline for it still going out and costing quite a bit, but perhaps not quite as much as you were anticipating.
Yeah. So which ones? So let's say that you get two relievers. We'll get into the bat here in a minute. Who are they?
Yeah. If we're talking about two relievers, if I had to choose two relievers to go out and get at the trade deadline, it would be David Bednar and Phil Maton.
Okay, and that's your statistical evaluation of bang for your buck, right?
That is bang for your buck while still getting a guy who can go out there and close games, combining that with another guy who has been really solid from right-handed side. Phil Maton, I don't think is going to cost much at all. David Bednar is going to cost a little bit more, but I have, with the success that he's had this season, which granted it is in Pittsburgh, so you have to take that in mind. There hasn't been any postseason experience that he's had. I think he would be another potential option to be at the back end of the bullpen during a postseason series. You combine that with the other arms that they have, and I think you could go out there and have a really solid deadline, potentially go out there and get an additional bat as well without going out and spending all of the guys in your system, and still having that be an option for potentially next offseason. Let's say that you have to go out there and get some sort of additional outfield bat. You could go out and trade some of the guys for a really solid outfield bat as well.
Yeah. So you're putting the outfield bat into the equation because you're saying that why go spend capital on bullpen help if you don't also get a bat, because if you don't get both, you're not going to win the World Series. I think that's a good argument to make.
Yeah, I think spreading out some of your resources and making this team
because
a little bit more
because you have to get a bat too. Yeah.
Yes. I think with the offense where it's at right now, I think it has been struggling, and it is very concerning with the pace of some of these guys are hitting right now. Mookie Betts obviously has been struggling mightily, and that has been incredibly concerning because of the long-term ramifications of what that's going to do. Obviously, great to see Freddie Freeman go out there and get a hit. Teoscar Hernandez got a couple of hits today. Tommy
Yes.
Edman also had a hit, but those are all guys that have struggled quite a bit. I think if you could add a guy, and this comes down to a question of, is it for the offense more of a need to add a bat for a bat's sake, or to add somebody that's going to help make this defense more well-rounded? Because I think that could lead you to two different paths, or you could perhaps try to wiggle the middle road down that path and potentially go down to a different option.
I've got 3 minutes. You can hear my Dodgers dogs. They are ready to go on a walk. Austin, this has been an awesome show. Again, I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm firing bullets at Austin just to hear his, because he explains the other side of things. So I'm explaining one side, he's explaining the other.
Yes.
And I know I can do that to Austin because he's just so good at finding the other sides of what I'm saying. So I do that to give both sides the perspective. And it's just a hell of a lot of fun. So that's not to say that I want to get rid of any of these guys or any of that, or that's not to say that I don't think that Josue Paula, Zire Hope, or anybody we talked about isn't an awesome player or any of that. That's just to cover every single side in fairness, to bring up every point of the conversation, which is what you have to do. It's what the Dodgers will do in the war room. I promise you that when they're trying to make these decisions.
And the reality is that this season is massively important for the Los Angeles Dodgers, because every season should be important for the Dodgers, especially when they have this much of a chance to be able to go out there and win a World Series. And we've seen this team struggle of late and have some holes, and that need to go out there and be addressed. And you have to look at a lot of different angles. You have to
100%.
look at what is the possibility of going out there and trading some of your top guys, because you potentially might need that to go out there and win a World Series. You also have to look at the alternative, because the only options shouldn't just be, this is what this beat writer said. You have to look at
100%.
every single option to be able to go out there and make this team as good as possible, which I think is the alternative side, is trying to look for potentially alternative options, making that comparison and making the marginal assessment of whether this is going to be, whether each one of those is going to be the best choice or not.
100%. Hey, when am I going to get you next so we can talk? You can see my Dodgers dog. Hey, Barn. When am I going to get you back so we can talk about the outfielder or maybe third baseman if we don't think Muncy? I think he's going to be healthy, but the bat that the Dodgers need to get.
I think it's going to be healthy. I'm really down on the third base options, honestly, as far as different options. That's only if there's bad news for Max Muncy. So outfielders, we can talk a little bit about that. Tomorrow and Friday, I will be in Gray Lakes. It's Pontooners weekend, which is why I'm wearing this hat right now. Pontooners weekend. They're really excited about that, Thursday through Sunday. Saturday, I'll be driving back and have to help out with a couple of things, but potentially with Saturday at some time I might be able to find that, or if it's just we have to do it when I'm driving and stuff, where I can find some sort of way.
That'd be great. That'd be great. On Friday, you said?
On Saturday, I'll be driving back.
I won't be back Saturday till late afternoon. My dad's getting inducted into
that's
the
awesome.
Referees Hall of Fame on Saturday.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
Friday, I'll be at the game. It might be a little bit difficult to be able to do Friday. I know I will be on my show on Monday. I will for sure be on my show on Monday. So even if it's something where you find some time to be able to do that, and we just
I'll hop on with you Monday and we'll talk about third basemen, and we'll put a bow on this.
Yes, and then really any sort of thing, especially if the Dodgers make some sort of trade for somebody, because July 31st deadline is 8 days away, we'll find some sort of way to be able to hop on, do some sort of live. Either Casey or I will be able to do that.
Yeah, you're way better at this trade stuff. It's a lot better when I can just play the devil's advocate and throw it at you, because you're way better at that. So
awesome, thanks. I absolutely enjoy this, man.
This was amazing. Yeah, and I'd talk for another 2 hours if my Dodgers dogs weren't throwing a fit and I didn't have to take them for a walk. So Austin, great job. Thanks, man.
Appreciate it, Case. Hey,
to all you Dodgers dogs out there, want to thank you for tuning in. A reminder that this is the absolute best baseball chat in the world. I love talking to you Dodgers dogs. So thank you so much for tuning in. And one last reminder, it's a great day to be a Dodger.